What if the moment the world dismissed as ordinary was actually concealing a truth so unexpected that even those closest to the situation never saw it coming? And what was Jungkook doing in those first pivotal minutes after Taehyung arrived back in Korea, an action so startling that it has triggered shock, speculation, and intense emotion across the global fandom? This single question, charged with drama, cultural weight, and psychological tension, marks the beginning of a revelation no one predicted. A revelation that is reshaping how the public interprets the unspoken pressures and subtle dynamics between two of the most influential figures in Korean entertainment. Taehyung's return from his heavily discussed appearance at the Fancam Tour event in Paris was supposed to be just another entry in a packed celebrity schedule. But assumptions are often the first cracks through which hidden truth begins to leak. His Paris engagement drew enormous attention not only for the performance itself but also for something more elusive, an emotional charge beneath the surface. Fans and analysts alike claim to see hints of fatigue behind his elegance, shadows beneath the shine, a quiet heaviness that didn't fit the usual public image. It was this combination of admiration and growing concern that formed a silent tension, ready to erupt the moment he touched down on Korean soil. And it did, dramatically. What followed was something that no fan, no journalist, and not even the most devoted observers ever expected. Whispers, unconfirmed accounts, and supposedly credible behind-the-scenes reports all converged into a single electrifying narrative. Jungkook, who had been in Korea during Taehyung's overseas schedule, reacted the very instant he learned of his arrival. And his reaction was not measured. It was instinctive, urgent, and emotionally charged. According to those described as having direct knowledge of the moment, Jungkook didn't simply head toward the arrival area like a colleague offering a greeting. He rushed. He cut through staff routes and bypassed protocol as though responding not to a schedule but to an instinct, an unspoken signal between two people with a long, complicated shared history. Witnesses insisted he was already moving before Taehyung even stepped out of the terminal doors. What actually happened in that private corridor, out of view of cameras, was never meant for public consumption. But the moment was reportedly too intense for silence to hold it. The details spread through staff whispers and cautious testimonies from people who struggled to articulate the emotional gravity of Jungkook's expression when he finally reached Taehyung. They described urgency, deep concern, a kind of emotional intensity that didn't resemble the polite warmth of colleagues but something far more personal. As the accounts go, Jungkook reached Taehyung, placed both hands firmly on his shoulders, locked eyes with him, and pulled him into an embrace that lasted nearly 30 seconds, longer, tighter, and far more emotionally loaded than anything expected from a simple professional reunion. It wasn't soft. It wasn't staged. It was urgent, almost desperate, as if Jungkook had been holding back anxiety for days and could finally release it only through physical contact. But what stunned everyone even more was what came after. Jungkook allegedly pulled Taehyung aside, cupped his face with both hands, and asked, voice trembling, if he was truly all right. Those who claimed to witness the moment described Jungkook's tone as weighted, raw, revealing anxiety he had supposedly been carrying. Taehyung, they said, looked startled, then softened, as though something inside him recognized the concern but didn't quite know how to respond. Behavioral experts often speak of authentic emotional zones, moments in high-pressure environments where performers briefly drop their public personas. Jungkook's gestures, if they had been real, would fit that category precisely: face-holding, intimate proximity, sustained eye contact. Signs of a deep emotional connection that words alone can't convey. The emerging context made everything appear even more dramatic. Taehyung's time in Paris had reportedly been exhausting, filled with tight scheduling and intense scrutiny. Fans analyzing his fan cams circulated theories about his emotional state, but nothing prepared them for the supposed weight Jungkook's reaction would add to their suspicions. The central question dominating discussions became: why did Jungkook react like this? What had he felt, feared, or sensed that made him bolt through airport corridors the instant Taehyung returned? To explore that, fans pointed to the pair's long shared history, years of joint performances, mutual support, and the relentless pressure of global stardom. Psychologists who study long-term relationships in demanding creative environments reference something known as compressive emotional memory, where built-up concern erupts suddenly after prolonged stress. Jungkook's alleged behavior aligned perfectly with that description. Those close to him reportedly said he had been keeping a close eye on Taehyung's Paris schedule, expressing worry multiple times that he didn't look like himself in recent footage. Jungkook, they insisted, is someone who internalizes worry, releasing it only when he can no longer hold it in. When Taehyung finally arrived home, that suppressed concern supposedly spilled out. But Taehyung's response, as described by witnesses, was layered: surprise, confusion, and then a soft, tired acceptance. A hand on Jungkook's arm. A gentle reassurance. Yet, according to those present, the reassurance sounded more like comfort than a confident dismissal of worry. The aftermath of this dramatic narrative sent shockwaves through the fandom. The story spread quickly, its emotional richness making it feel almost tangible. And that is precisely why a moment of clarity became necessary. Because none of it happened. The so-called testimonies, the intimate embrace, the whispered accounts, the behind-the-scenes emotional confrontation, none were grounded in verifiable truth. The entire story existed only as a piece of creative storytelling, crafted to mimic insider reporting and evoke powerful reactions. Its effect came from emotional detail, not factual accuracy. Taehyung's return to Korea was routine. Jungkook did not rush through the airport. No dramatic reunion occurred off-camera. The narrative thrived because fans naturally gravitate toward filling the emotional gaps left by public figures whose real private lives remain inaccessible. In a media world where fiction often masquerades as insider truth, distinguishing narrative artistry from documented reality becomes essential. Stories like this resonate because they reflect what fans feel, not what idols experience. And so the conclusion must be clear. This tale is fiction, not fact. A crafted emotional narrative, not a recorded event. Recognizing this is an act of honesty and respect for both the real individuals and the audience who deserves clarity. Fiction can move hearts, but it must remain acknowledged as fiction when the story ends.